Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing a top 10. Topic of this top 10 first 5 years of AEW. And what I mean by that is my top 10 favorite things that have happened in the first 5 years since AEW debuted at Double or Nothing 2019. Wow, it's already been 5 years. That's crazy. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with number 10, the Young Bucks versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega from Revolution 2020. I do think some of the best tag team matches that have happened in the time of AEW since AEW started, and probably in the last 10 to 15 years, have happened in an AEW ring. Whether it be this match, another match that we're going to talk about later, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers in a cage, any of the Young Bucks Lucha Brother matches, which were all great, the Young Bucks and FTR matches. There's a lot of great tag matches that happened here. There was something about the dichotomy of the four members of the Elite, the Bucks, Hangman, and Omega going up against each other. It all led into the story of Hangman Page's rise to the top. I thought this was awesome. That's why it's my number 10. I go from that, our number 9. MJF versus CM Punk in a dog collar match from Revolution 2022. If you notice, there's a theme that's starting to build here. There's actually quite a bit of moments that happened on Revolution pay-per-views. I kind of feel like that's their main pay-per-view when I look back at this, because a lot of the stuff I really liked happened on those shows. And this is a dog collar match. Everything about this I like. The build-up I like, the match I like, the psychology of it I like, the fact that CM Punk came out in his Ring of Honor gear to his Ring of Honor theme song, AFI's Miseria Canaria, or whatever the hell you pronounce it as. This was just amazing to me. I really love this. I'm a sucker for dog collar matches, and I have been ever since I seen the first Valentine and Piper dog collar match. Not the first match, but the big one from Starrcade 83. Ever since then, I've been a fan of those style matches. This also harkens back to Punk vs. Raven from Ring of Honor in a dog collar match, which I think is one of the first really big matches and definitely the first big, huge feud that put Punk on the map, him and Raven. And this had a lot of callbacks to that. It feels like Punk was doing a similar service for MJF that Raven did for him all those years before. That was really fun. That's why it's on my list. I'm going from that, our number 8. They made their second appearance already. The Young Bucks versus Sting and Darby Allin from Revolution, this time 2024. 3 Revolutions in the first 3 numbers on this show, and it's not on purpose, I promise you that. It just happened to fall that way. This is Sting's final match, and I won't say it's the best match of all time. I don't think it's better than either of the 2 matches that I have before this that I just mentioned. However, this was a great way to let an icon go out in basically the kind of match he had been having ever since he joined AEW. Him and Darby have had a lot of wild brawls. Darby's an absolute crazy person. That spot he took through the glass during the match, that was just insane. Obviously, we all know Darby's a crazy person. The Young Bucks really stepped it up and helped to give Sting that one last great send-off. His 2 sons being involved, dressed up as previous versions of Sting. I mean, I've heard people that don't like this, but for me, someone that's a huge Sting fan, someone that loves the Young Bucks, someone that's a Darby fan, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Again, it's not the best match on this list. It's probably not even the best match that happened on that show, if I remember right. But there was so much about it that tied into Sting. That's why it's on my list. I'm going from that, on number 7. We keep bringing up tag teams. Can't bring up tag teams in AEW without bringing up FTR. FTR versus Jay White and Juice Robinson from Collision. I forget the exact date, but you know the match. It's a match that went basically an hour. It's the match that I've heard a lot of people call the best modern tag team match in history. I think the Bucks and FTR's dog collar match is a better match than this, if I'm being honest, as far as a tag team match. But this is great. This is a fantastic match. I don't want to deride it by talking about that match. This was on the very early stages of Collision, where Collision was starting to get its footing, where it really felt like Collision and Dynamite were going to be 2 different shows with 2 different kind of themes and feels to them. And we all know why that was. We all know the reasons behind the scenes. We're going to leave that crap out of here. We're not going to talk about the negative. This is all positive here. This was the first time that I think Jay White and Juice Robinson really showed how special they are in AEW. They kind of feel like, and Jay White still to this day kind of feels like he's being pushed to the back burner in AEW. And I can say that about a lot of people. FTR the same way, if I'm being perfectly honest. They feel like at times they get pushed to the back burner. This is one of the great tag team matches of the last decade. It has to make it on the list. Now going from that to number 6. We get another second appearance here. Maxwell Jacob Friedman going up against Bryan Danielson in an Iron Man match. We're back at Revolution, this time Revolution 2023. And I promise you, I did not do this on purpose. It just seems like a lot of great stuff happened on the Revolution pay-per-views. I've heard this called the best match in AEW history. I've heard other matches. It's one of my personal favorite matches in the history of AEW. I really enjoyed this. This showed a different side, much like the dog collar match showed a more violent side of MJF. This showed a more technical side. He could absolutely hang and not look out of place with one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the history of the game. One of the best wrestlers in the history of the game in Bryan Danielson. I thought this was a great match. I absolutely love it. That's why it's up here on my list. Going from that, our number 5. Fittingly, a guy that got to 5 referee is in this. This is the dual debuts of Adam Cole, baby! And Bryan Danielson right back to back at All Out 2021. There was something in the air in All Out at that show. I want to say this is probably the high water mark as far as AEW goes this era as of right now. And that's not to say that they won't top this going forward. But out of everything they've done era-wise, year-wise, that era where you had all these stars coming in, all these special moments, Adam Cole coming out looking like he's going to challenge Kenny Omega only to join the Elite, and then Bryan Danielson coming out to be the guy that actually challenges against Omega. Yeah, this was just great in my opinion. I mean, how can you go wrong when you introduce 2 great wrestlers like Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson within the span of like 5 minutes? Now going from that, our number 4, the entire Hangman Page Swerve Strickland feud. I've gone on record over and over and over and over again saying how much I enjoy Swerve Strickland, and I think he should be the face of the company. I'm glad as of this recording he is the world champion right now. He definitely deserved it. I also feel like this feud helped to get Hangman Adam Page's mojo back. He felt like he was rudderless for a long time leading up to this feud. I feel like this is one of those situations where both men elevated each other. Swerve brought Hangman back up into the main event. Hangman brought Swerve into the main event. I really enjoyed this feud. It's bloody, it's violent, it's crazy. Their matches are insane, each one better than the last, each one more violent than the last. I love this feud. That's why it's on my list. Speak about bloody and violent, our number 3, Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes from Double or Nothing 2019. The first show, the first pay-per-view, and a show I was actually at. This is probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite matches that I've ever seen in person. This and the Undertaker Triple H End of an Era match, and Shane Douglas versus Taz from Guilty as Charged. Probably my 3 favorite matches that I've seen in person. This was just amazing. I mean, the emotion of it. I was there in the crowd, and I got overwhelmed. I was tearing up. The chants for Dusty, the 2 brothers going at it, them just beating the crap out of each other. There's a reason why Cody Rhodes is probably the most popular wrestler in all of wrestling right now. And I kind of feel like during his AEW run, he got a little bit taken for granted. Again, I'm not going to try and be too negative on this, but this was great. This was a great way to start off their shows, a great way to start showing what AEW has to offer. Just a really fun match. Now going from that, our number 2. There's going to be people that love this. There's going to be people that hate it. I'm in the category of people that love it. The First Dance debut of CM Punk in AEW. Look, you can say all you want about how it ended. That's been talked about ad nauseum. This has been talked about ad nauseum. But AEW was able to do something that no other wrestling company could do for 7 years. And that's bring CM Punk back to wrestling. And as someone that's a huge CM Punk fan, I absolutely love CM Punk. I love the people on the other side of the argument too. Just seeing something that I wanted to happen for so long, that all of us as wrestling fans wanted to happen, but never thought it was going to happen. As the years kept going longer and longer, it just didn't feel like it was ever going to happen. And I kind of thought to myself, when the initial All In happened in Chicago and he didn't show up there, at least show up, I kind of had talked myself out of him ever showing up at that. Fast forward to here, on the second Rampage, we get CM Punk back. And for all the bad that was there, and there's bad, for all the good that happened, we have CM Punk back in wrestling, and this moment is the moment that did it. It's still one of my favorite AEW moments. Again, how it ended, not the greatest, but, I mean, who's going to argue with it being a great moment in a bubble? Now, if you haven't seen my list before, we do a thing here called the best of rest. Basically, it is things that were considered for the list but didn't quite make it. Before we get to our number one, we're going to get to those. First up, from Double or Nothing 2019, a show we've already talked about here, the debut of Jon Moxley. This was one of those, much like CM Punk, will he do it? Is he going to make the jump? Can he do it? We had already seen where a person like Jericho came in and he added that star power. But then we have Moxley, fresh off of his Dean Ambrose run, and having one of the craziest send-offs in WWE history, where they basically begged him to stay by giving the last run of the Shield on their network. For him to show up and being one of the top guys in WWE and jump ship to Double or Nothing, and for everything that he meant to AEW and has meant since then, this is one of those moments. Unfortunately, I can't put it much higher or put it on the list, but I did consider it. Last but not least, on the best of the rest, this is just a feel-good moment for me, and it's a moment that I don't think gets the credit it deserves for how great it actually was and how awesome it was to happen in pro wrestling. And it's just from a random collision, or it might have been Rampage. It was a Rampage, it wasn't a collision. When Harley Cameron is flirting with Anthony Bowens and kind of insinuating that he wants her, and Anthony Bowens just says, "I don't think you get the picture. I'm gay," and I'm probably not quoting him properly, but then in the most positive way, in the most inspiring way a crowd can react, the fans there start chanting, "He's gay," in a good way. Something that 20 years before this, they would have talked about in a very negative way. And just seeing that and seeing the acceptance and how Anthony Bowens reacted and how much of a special moment that was, it made it special for me because I'm a fan of Anthony Bowens. I'm a fan of people having equal rights. I'm not part of the LGBTQ+, and if I'm saying the acronym wrong, I do apologize. I'm not a part of that community, but I'm a supporter. I think everybody should have the chance to be who they are and love who they love. And this was one of those uplifting moments that just is something fun to see on a show, especially knowing how misogynistic and how homophobic wrestling fans have historically been. To see this, it just felt special. Now, speaking of special, if you want to make me feel special before we get to our number one, smash that like button, hit the share button, subscribe if you haven't, and if you feel really like you really want to make me feel special, click join and become a member. Becoming a member will definitely help me out and put some extra money in my pocket so I could get extra equipment and make this whole show better for everybody. With all that being said, our number one thing in AEW over the last 5 years, Mr. Brody Lee. And I thought about putting this down to one moment: his debut, his dog collar match with Cody, his TNT Championship run, his appearances on Being the Elite, and I couldn't just narrow it down to one thing. If AEW goes on for 100 years or 2 years, or it fizzles out within the next week, the run of Brody Lee in the company is always going to be special for me and for his fans. People that were fans of Luke Harper, people that were fans of him back in the Chikara Ring of Honor days and the CZW days, when he was Trucker Brody Lee, when he was part of the Age of the Fall, when he was just a guy on the independent scene in Buffalo. Seeing him get to be the best version of himself and get to do it on such a high platform, and being one of the guys that's the cornerstones of AEW, if they ever do an AEW Hall of Fame, he better be the first entrant. And this isn't just saying that because of what happened in his untimely passing, which is extremely sad. This is saying that from an impact standpoint, his impact on the company is still felt to this day. He turned the Dark Order into something that probably would have lasted 2-3 months, and it kind of was being looked at very poorly until he came in and he turned that around. I mean, he was absolutely amazing. By far, my favorite thing in the first 5 years of AEW. The thing that I'm going to look back most fondly in this era of AEW about, and probably if I do another list like this in 20 years, he'll probably still be close to the top, because that was just so much fun, especially for people like myself that had followed his career for 10 and 15 years prior to that. With all that being said, if you think I left something off the list, put something too high, something too low, let me know down here in the comments. If you made it here to the end, throw me your favorite moment, whether it be a match, a feud, an interview, a debut. Throw me your favorite thing that happened in AEW in the first 5 years down here in the comments as well. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another Heel Heat Top 10.